In a world where war never ends, one man carries the weight of a generation, survivor of the battlefield, bringing you hard truths and hot lead, reviews from the locker, and trips to the meat grinder. Now he's taking you behind enemy lines, not into combat, into truth. Stories from 1st Recon Battalion, with no BS conversations. Marine, veteran, Brad Iceman Colbert, where legends tell it like it is. This is not just a podcast, it's a mission.
Enough toilet talk. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Hannah. What's next in the queue?
Alrighty then. Oof, where should we go next? Okay. This is from Mr. Bones. He is a retired Coast Guard. We like the Coasties, don't we?
I actually love the Coasties. But Anna, for those at home that don't understand, the Coast Guard in England is very different than the United States Coast Guard. Because English Coast Guard is all volunteers. It's not paid for by the federal government. You get funding, but it's like a volunteer fire department in the United States.
But completely different beasts. The US Coast Guards are amazing.
Yeah, no, they are. I'm just saying, like, I have tremendous respect for the Coast Guard in England because they're all volunteers that go out in the shitty weather to go rescue stupid people.
Yep. Good stuff. They good blokes and girls.
Yeah.
Shall we do the question? Are you ready?
I'm sorry. Please continue.
What's your opinion on the quote-unquote silent professionals, aka Navy SEALs? And have you ever worked with them in a capacity that you could talk about?
Yes. Oh, man. So, look, all of the services love to bust each other's balls, right? Rake each other over the coals, roast them, poke fun at them, tease them, whatever word you want to use. We all, though, love making fun of the SEALs. And how do you know someone is a Navy SEAL? Don't worry, they'll tell you. Gets me every time. I have worked with the SEALs in a lot of different capacities. So back in the day, when I went through the basic reconnaissance course, it was down in Coronado, California at the same base that the SEALs Buds was held at. So we would share a lot of the same beach, ocean, training facilities. And I don't mean share like, oh, hey, are you using that beach? May I use that beach? No, they would be running down one side. You know, we may be 500 meters away, or I may be coming out of the chow hall and I can see the Buds guys with their boats going, you know, and we might have done it this morning, that kind of thing. There was a time when the Navy SEALs deployed on U.S. Navy vessels, usually the junior platoons. And I don't want to get into this, you know, parsing of, you know, that tier 1 and white special forces and different, you know, SOCOM tiers. I'll just leave that one alone. And suffice to say that there was a time when the SEALs would deploy on the Navy ships along with the recon and the force recon platoons. And we would do a lot of training together. Not all the time, but there were times where, you know, we would do a joint range together, or they had a mission to do some type of amphibious operation and we would work with them. Or sometimes the special boat unit would give us a ride on the boat as an insertion platform. So you do cross paths with them. Now, later, the SEALs were no longer deployed on Navy ships, strictly fly away these days. So they're forward deployed. And if a crisis comes and they're needed, they take aircraft. They didn't want to go out there and spend 7 months at sea like the Marines do. Every branch of the military has its own role. There's a lot of overlap. I think that when it comes to the Navy SEALs and at least the reconnaissance community, whether that's force recon or and even critical skills operators. There's a lot of commonality, all naval roots. We definitely give the SEALs a hard time. I don't think they give us a hard time because honestly, they don't think about us. We don't have the hair for it. Yeah, I don't bear any ill will towards them at all. I've met some great ones. I've worked with some great ones. There were some great ones when I was overseas with the British commandos that were there, lifelong friends to this day and salt of the earth. I've also met some horrible prima donnas and guys that I wouldn't like piss on if they were on fire, but that's all of us, right? So that's not limited towards a particular branch of service or skill set. Did I answer that? Did I leave anything?
Fairly,
Okay.
I think, yes. Mr. Bones ends with a PS. He says, the Coast Guard has only one Medal of Honor award. Guess what Douglas Munro did? Do you know? I think I do.
Yes. He was stationed at a Navy base. And I remember this. I want to say it was World War II. He was assigned to the Navy. He was stationed at a Navy base. Maybe he wasn't actually assigned to the Navy. Shoot. I know this one. I am struggling at the moment. Fill in the blanks.
I believe he rescued a bunch of Marines.
That's right. He led a rescue operation for a platoon of Marines that was on one of the islands. It starts with an M. Matanka. No. Yes. Yeah. It's a good story.
Yeah,
God.
you're right. Matanikau.
Yes.
I'm saying it wrong. I'm so sorry I'm saying it wrong.
Matanikau. And he led a rescue operation for these that had been cut off by the Japanese.
Yes, beautifully. Right.
All right. Yeah. I actually worked with a U.S. Coast Guardsman, great guy, expert in amphibious asymmetrical warfare, who was also stationed over with in England, but he was, obviously with the Coast Guard at their schoolhouse down there in Poole.
Very nice. You've been around, haven't you? You've been around the block a few times.
Easy.
All right, let's go to Reddit. Anonymous question. 2, in fact. One easy one to ease you in, then a harder one.
Okay.
First one. Did Ray ever shut up?
He still doesn't shut up. No. I've changed up drink, by the way. Somebody poured me what I can only assume is 291. And one of my favorites. So, wow. All right, I'm going to sip that instead of attack it like I was my sake. Ray is a talker. It's his personality. Combat does different things to different people. Some people become stoic and withdrawn. Other people become animated and outgoing. Adrenaline does different things. Stress and, fear does different things. So whether or not that was a side effect of the environment or if it was really who Ray was, I guess only he knows. But no, he pretty much kept a running fucking monologue the entire time. But I love the guy. Brilliant mind. Yeah, doesn't shut up.
Lovely. Second part of the question. Serious one. It's been 20 years and the Middle East is on fire again. How did the accomplishments of Operation Iraqi Freedom feel in retrospect and through a more mature worldview?
Well, I don't think that anyone is even in... I don't think anyone looks at the Iraq campaign as in any way helping to secure stability in the Middle East. I have levied my opinion on the Iraq campaign of 2003 a few times. I'll do it again here just to refresh everyone's memory. Bad intelligence. I think if we had to do it again, there was a better way to do it. But the current, at least in 2003, sitting regime of Saddam Hussein is pretty fucking nasty. I understand that it's very easy for a large portion of the world to read books, newspapers, documentaries on television to watch, and come to the conclusion that We should have never attacked. We should have never removed Saddam Hussein. He actually wasn't that bad of a guy. Well, I spent an inordinate amount of time on the ground in Iraq and was immersed amongst its people. Not as many as some, fully admit it, but enough to hear first and secondhand accounts of some of the atrocities that were performed under his leadership. And he was a bad man. But I'm also not so naive to think that it was some, great crusade, as George Bush accidentally stated over the television at the time, or that we somehow had a manifest destiny to remove that despotic ruler. I don't think we made the Middle Eastern part of the world any safer by Iraq. And I don't think that the current conflict in any way adds or subtracts to what took place with the U.S. and our partner forces globally, really, in Iraq. I don't think it changes anything, really. It is its own standalone chapter in history. And as everyone knows, it's still being written.
Right. Good to go. Thank you. Let's stick with Reddit. I have a list of questions collated by Figwin, who moderates the Generation Kill subreddit. So thank you, Figwin. This is hugely helpful.
Thank you, my friend. That is a tremendous lift, and Anna really appreciates it.
Absolutely. Are you ready?
Send it.
First one. What is one thing you wish made it into the series and one thing you wish wasn't portrayed?
The series was originally supposed to be one episode longer than it was. I can't recall the exact reason. I'm sure somebody out there is going to correct me. I want to say that for budget constraints, I think it was a budget thing. They necked it down by one series. And in doing so, they still wanted to try and portray as many of the events as possible. So some things were cut and pasted. There are some things in the Generation Kill television series that are not exactly accurate. And I don't mean that they didn't happen, but that guy probably didn't say it. It was this guy. This event happened earlier in the timeline, or things like that. As far as a specific event that I wish had made it in, I honestly don't. I can't think of one. Nothing comes to mind. The book obviously is a more holistic look at the events on the ground with my platoon in 2003. You can't, which we all know, capture, whether it's in a movie or a miniseries, everything that takes place as written in a book. But you can do a pretty good job of trying. I don't think there's anything that I would take out. It showed the good, it showed the bad, and it showed the ugly. I think, if anything, I would have loved to have seen the boring parts, but nobody ever puts that in. Like, no war movie would ever get made if they showed, like, the Marines turning rifles back into the armory and cleaning the Humvees and loading the ship for the ride back home, or the aircraft. Like, that stuff's boring, but there's also a certain reality in it that when you edit for film, you don't really see. War is an incredibly boring endeavor for the most part. I think that a lot of our perceptions of combat come from film and television, which has been packaged to provide the maximum amount of either information or entertainment. And a lot of times, you don't see the mission planning. You don't see the long nights where two soldiers are just staring up at the stars, telling ridiculous stories about things they miss at home or their sexual escapades or God knows what, right? So I guess if I had to pick one thing, that would probably be it to put in, but nobody would watch the show then. It would be boring as hell.
Well said. Okay. Next question. What songs did you and the team sing during the invasion? And did you soften your stance on country music?
It's been so long now. I actually don't remember what we sang. I'd ask Evan if he was around to ask. May he rest in peace. But I don't know. I don't know what we sang.
What about country music?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I have somewhat softened my stance. I still think it's the Special Olympics of music, and it is, but I got to admit, I like some old school Johnny Cash. There's a couple of
that's
other.
different though.
Why is
That's
it different?
good stuff. Because that's just good stuff.
Yeah, but see, you're giving an opinion and it's subjective.
My opinion is right.
Okay. It may be.
Shall we
that
move
remains
on,
to be
or?
seen. Yeah. I've softened my stance on country. I still don't like it, but I let a little more into my life than I used to.
All right. Fair enough. You've mellowed a bit. Next question.
An age.
What did you do before you enlisted?
Well, I was a lifeguard for a long time. I was a swimming instructor. I was a swimming coach. I also, for a brief stint, was a production manager at a bulk mailing house. That is the extent of my work prior to the Marine Corps. Oh, and a brief stint as a paperboy lasted 1 month, and I was fired.
Why were you fired?
Why was I fired? Well, for those of you that may have had a paper route, and look, paper routes are no longer a thing for a whole host of reasons. Nobody reads newspapers anymore. Most of them are now delivered by the Postal Service, or if they are by private carrier, they're these, people who are old enough to drive trucks, and they have a massive route. When I did it, you had a bicycle and a basket. And at 5:30 in the morning, some truck pulled up, put a big banded bundle of newspapers on your driveway. As a child or a kid or a teenager, you walked out, you broke the bundle up, you rolled these newspapers into a round object, put a rubber band on them. If it was raining, you put them in a bag. Now, a lot of times, newspapers would sell advertising. You would have supplements, furniture, grocery stores, dry cleaning, doesn't matter. These supplements had to go inside. Now, they added a shitload of time to your morning because now instead of one bundle, you had two, and you had to collate them, taking an insert, putting it into the newspaper. Now you roll it up. A lot of times, you would take your supplements and you'd throw them down a drain pipe. Well, the person who is in charge of managing the route would periodically spot check, and I was spot checked, and I was fired for not putting my supplements in. So that's how that ended. But aside from that, lifeguard, swimming instructor, and the aforementioned bulk mail house manager.
Well, I'm still stuck on the lifeguard situation here. What are we talking? Baywatch, Little Red Shorts type thing?
I wore a tank top and shorts, and I had a beautiful blonde mustache.
Okay, I'm done. Next one. What happened to all those speeding tickets, and have you slowed down at all?
Wow. So speeding tickets in the United States, if you don't know, after a certain number of years, they drop off your record. Those points, if you will, they go away. Your insurance kind of stabilizes. So for the most part, with one exception, they have dropped off. I have not stopped speeding, but I am much more careful about it. I don't do it all the time. I have a very expensive radar detector to help me. And so a couple of years ago, had a pretty good ticket. I was long drive, like 10-hour drive. I was like an hour away from the house, starting to smell the barn. I'm getting antsy. This individual had been behind me riding my bumper, which is the number one red thing for me. Like, if you want to get me in the red, tailgate me. I hate it. I hate it so much. I lose my mind. So in order to get away from the individual that was tailgating me, I, got a little heavy on the throttle. Virginia State Troopers don't like that. And I may have been doing 125 into 70. And it was a very expensive infraction. But that was several years ago, and it's probably getting close to drop off, and I shan't be doing that again.
You've learned from your mistakes.
No, I haven't learned from my mistake. No, not at all. Not at all. No, I'm just more careful. That's all.
All right, next. Did you ever end up getting your helicopter pilot license?
I'm still working on it. There are a lot of competing things in my life. Kids, a house, the distillery, like there's a lot. So, getting a chance to get out of the house for a couple of hours, and spend a ridiculous amount of money to log in some hours. We'll get there someday.
Fair. All right. This is a big question designed as a small one. What are your top 3 book recommendations of any genre?
Top 3 book recommendations.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah, it really is. There's a book that I read to my children that I like. I want to do 4, okay? First off, when it comes to science fiction, probably one of my all-time greats is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. It's probably one of the best written books. There's loads in the genre. I like science fiction. I think it's a great vehicle for telling stories. But there's others, Armor, Parafaith War, God helps, iRobot. There's so many, but let's stick with Orson Scott Card because he did ask for 3 recommendations. There's a book called Justice, which is a really good book written by a law professor, and it kind of challenges your perception of what's ethical and what's not. It's written in a vignette style. Is price gouging right or wrong? Is euthanasia right or wrong? So it's a little bit of moral, it's a little bit of ethical, it's a little bit of legal. It's a very fascinating book, and I think it's going to challenge your perception. Again, this is a very difficult question because there's so many competing in my head for 3. And a little bit on the lighthearted side, but fascinating to read, is How We Decide. It explains how our brain has evolved to need both emotion and logic in reaching a decision. And it explains the physical, the psychological, the emotional needs for it. A great example he gives is if somebody has the connection between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain broken, they're almost paralyzed with indecision. When we get dressed in the morning, we decide what we want to wear. What we want to wear is a practical decision. I mean, obviously, you're not going to wear shorts and t-shirt in a blizzard, but a lot of it is emotional. What do you think would fit well? What do you think people will like? What is going to make you look good? So it takes both to arrive at the decision. And this book kind of explains all that. And you walk away with a better understanding of why we make some of the decisions that we make, both good and bad. And so this is a PS or a bonus. The book that I like to read to my children is Rules for a Night by Ethan Hawke. Yes, that Ethan Hawke, the actor. Ethan Hawke actually comes from the Hawke family, which can traces its lineage all the way back to the Knights of Arthurian times. He decided to be an actor, but if you look at his family history, there's a lot of very popular, influential thinkers in his bloodline. This is a story that is passed on from, generations in the past. And it's really a book, very, very simple read. One chapter is, 3 or 4 pages in some cases, but it explains rules for a night. Courage, empathy, morality, virtue. And it's very it's very easy for a younger adult to understand. And it's explained through parables in some cases, but it's good. Yeah. So those are my recommendations on the books. What was the other part, Anna? Thank you.
No, that was it. Brilliant.
Okay, good. Love it.
Next Reddit question. How do you think America's reputation as a security partner has changed since the Iraq War?
Fucking A, man. It's gone down the toilet. Where do I start? Let's see. We left Afghanistan and bailed out on our partners there. Basically turned our back on a whole host of people that we said that we wouldn't. and then burned the goodwill of all of the coalition partners that help us achieve what we did in Afghanistan. And then we, I mean, we've been wishy-washy on our involvement in helping out NATO partners. We have potentially made moves towards annexation of Greenland. Man, there's been a lot. If I was a foreign country, who back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s had the United States as a stalwart ally, I would probably look inward for a while. And that's not to say that the sleeping giant that is oftentimes the United States cannot be woken and come smashing to your defense, because we're very good at rallying that way. But actions speak louder than words. You can say that you're going to be an ally, but you also have to act like an ally. And I don't necessarily feel that we've been doing that the last decade. I'm not putting blame on any one administration, but yeah, I mean, I think it's gotten worse. I do.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. What does good leadership mean to you? You've answered that, I think. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I think I answered that one succinctly enough. Yeah.
All right. Do you think young men today excuse me. Do you think young men today are psychologically better or worse prepared for war than your generation was?
I think the generation that's on deck is smarter. I think they're able to learn faster. But I also think where they are let down is an unwillingness to suffer. And that may come across as being extraordinarily condescending, but I want to unpack it a little bit. There is this expression, suck it up. And it means you just got to take it. You got to appreciate the misery, enjoy the misery, endure it, and just get through it. And it may be that I am really just regurgitating a cliche of pop culture and a perception that is misguided and misplaced, but it appears anyways that a lot of the generation that is currently on deck is unwilling to really do the hard thing. There's a whole host of reasons, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, just pontificating. It's an instant gratification society. All of the information that in my day, fucking hate saying, we had to work for is now instantly at fingertips. There's a lot of external validation that goes along with this generation. It is a social media generation. And I think that there is a lot going for them. As I said, smarter, much more adaptable, but much less willing to suffer. And you have to be able to do that if you're going to go to war. I think the military has a challenge on its hands because every generation that comes through is taught by the older generation. So the previous generation is always training the new one. And they always look at the generation that's on deck through the lens of their own paradigm. And that's hard. It's hard to have asked Gen X to treat the millennials like anything other than bitchy little millennials. Now the millennials are old enough to be in the training seat and they're looking at the generation behind them and so on and so forth. So I don't envy the challenge that the armed forces has. They have to basically reinvent themselves every 15 years. I don't know if this generation is going to perform as well as mine did, but I mean, I can look at certain examples that make the case maybe not. I don't know. That's about as much of an answer to that question as I could possibly give without sounding like a total asshole. Or maybe I do anyway.
You wouldn't want to do that, would you?
No, God forbid. I would ostracize.
Heaven forfend. Okay, you'll like this one. Are you ready?
Oh yeah, I'm always ready.
Where must we go, we who wander this wasteland in search of our better selves?
First off, I have no idea where you're spying on me from, but I don't like it. My own assumption is they're making a reference to the tattoo on my left arm. It's probably visible in a still shot from some of the, episodes that we've had. If you're not familiar with the reference, it is completely contrived. It's not a quote. No one actually said it except for one person. One person. And I doubt they even actually said it. They wrote it. So it's at the end credits of Mad Max Fury Road. That director has been the same director from the very first movie to the most recent, Furiosa, and I liked the prose. I liked the message. Where must we go? We who wander this wasteland in search of our better selves. What is the next challenge? What is the next test? Where do I go as a wanderer to find the better version of me? So it completely invented and in many ways just junk philosophy, right? But you can also decide to internalize it and say, yeah, I am deciding that it is profound, at least enough to get it permanently inked onto my skin.
Let's stick with tattoos. This is a question from a name I can't pronounce. I apologize. Jaimre. Jamie?
Okay.
They would like to know, what was the inspiration for the tattoo on your back? Are there any other tattoos that you have?
Yeah. I have a lot more now than what was depicted in 2003's Generation Kill. That is Luis Royo. He's a Spanish artist, very talented. Luis Royo's artwork has been featured in Heavy Metal Magazine, the cover of numerous books as artwork. A long time ago, I came across a book in the library on base with that picture on the cover, and I thought, man, the book was shit, by the way. I mean, it was terrible. But that artwork was like, dude, that's a killer piece of art. So I looked more into who did the illustration because it's printed on the inside of the book cover. Found his works, and they're open source. I mean, you can buy big, 14 by 11, whatever. And I got it tattooed. I want to say it took 16 hours or something like that. I didn't do it all in one sitting, and then since then I've gotten tons more of Luis Royo stuff on my back.
Nice.
Yeah. So that happened.
No show and tell. Not today, huh?
No, nobody wants to see this. No. Nope.
I bet
Shirt's
they
not
do.
coming off.
But
no,
I
they
don't.
Nope. Carry on.
All right. Okay, stand by. This is a big one. This is from Manek. They would like to know, I want to know how you feel about the current war with Iran, given that your own adventure in 2003 in Iraq was also fueled by bogus intel and evangelical zealotry. A lot of complaints about commanders using religious language have come in from bases in CENTCOM. The motivation for this seems to lie less in a principled defense of our allies and more in the rapture prophecy. Or distracting from the fact that Sergeant Major Sixter and the Commander-in-Chief have a similar taste in girls. I hate to see how the current administration has further politicized the military and will waste lives and material for no achievable goal. Your input on these topics would be really appreciated. Woo, good luck.
Okay, well, let me start in the middle and to say that Sergeant Major Sexta is in jail. If you don't know, he was a pedophile. And he was arrested and he was tried in a court of law and he was found guilty and he was incarcerated. I don't know the details about it. That's not true. I do know some of the details about it, but I'm not going to talk about it because it's irrelevant. Whatever public court has decided that the current president was in some way associated with the same act, that has not been adjudicated, and I'm not going to weigh in on it, and I really don't want to, because I think that one's pure street theater until there's something that is concrete and provable. I have not heard about CENTCOM commanders being overly religious. Each commanding officer leads in the style that they see fit. I would be very surprised to know that they are framing any of the conflicts as somehow a religious campaign, a religious crusade, a just war based off of theological principles. I would be very surprised if that was the case. Now, they may pray at the end of a formation. That's very common. But I struggle to think that a commissioned officer at that echelon would put that down as messaging. It might happen. I don't know. And without facts, I'm leery to weigh in on it. Insofar as the president wasting lives, that is truly a subjective view. I think each one of you has to decide on your own, based off the information that you have and your personal beliefs, as to whether or not that's true. I mean, that's the beauty of our system. And that's the beauty of being alive on this planet, quite frankly, is you have an inalienable right to make up your own mind. But I would caution you, don't derive your facts in an echo chamber. Do not eat only in one place. Get as much information as you can from as many different sources as you can, and question the validity of those sources and what the agenda of the speaker might be. And you have to also allow yourself to be challenged and understand when you may be emotionally biased. The human condition is such that we don't like to admit that we're wrong. We don't like to admit that we're fallible, or that we may have made the wrong decision, come to the wrong conclusion, thought the wrong thing. That's hard. But that's what critical thinking is about. It's knowing yourself well enough to be able to admit when you've, maybe had a difference of opinion. I look at the war with Iran as being inevitable to a certain extent, and really it's sort of caught up in its own momentum. At this point, it had taken on a life of its own, regardless of the intelligence that you alluded to being false. I think history is going to have to decide that one. Here in the moment, while missiles are launching, honestly, and this may sound trite, who cares? Who cares? It's already started. It's in motion. When everything stops and we go back to status quo, then we can look at why. But in the middle of Pearl Harbor, nobody stopped to ask what caused it. They simply fought back. And I kind of feel that's what's taking place now. I don't know if I've answered the question succinctly enough, Anna. That's a hard one to really give an answer to that's, I think, going to satisfy anyone.
Works for me. We are where we are.
Okay.
Nothing we can do to change it. Let's go to Australia. Let's go to Matt in Australia. Matt's one of our Patreon members and he's lovely. Are you?
Good.
You like it. Matt? Okay. Are you ready? He's got several. What do you think the world will look like in 5 years, given the current tensions globally?
Okay. So, the audience doesn't know this yet, but I recently concluded a podcast with Dr. Moore, who's an expert on U.S.-China relations, on China and Taiwan. And it was a very productive conversation and really helped to paint some realities. I think one of those realities, and this is me, and I'm just giving you my opinion. The world in 5 years is going to look vastly different because I believe that conflict with China is inevitable. I think it is coming. I think that we're not prepared for it. I think we're going to probably come out on top, but barely. And I don't know what that's going to do to U.S.-China relations. I don't know what that's going to do to the relations between pro-China and pro-US. Where are the alliances going to fall? What is it going to do to international trade? What is it going to do to hegemony? What is it going to do to our foreign policy? I think the world is going to get worse before it gets better, but that's also a really subjective statement too, because what's your definition of worse and what is your definition of better? If you're in Iran, it's probably a different answer than if you're in America or if you're in Ecuador, if you are in Venezuela. It really comes down to, will we have stability? That's my marker of, are things going to get better? Will the world be more stable? Will markets be stable? Trade, international relations? I don't think it will. I think it's going to get worse. I think the next decade is going to be rocky.
All right.
Yeah.
Another drink on that note, I think.
Woo! Yeah, that got dark. What's the next part of it? Yep.
While on deployment, what were some self-care strategies you practiced? Did you paint your toenails and,
Spa days. Lots of spa days. I think that everybody has their own, clearly, and you asked me what mine was. And for me, it's isolation. And I know that runs contrary to most people's answer, to most people's expectation. And I want to explain what works for me, and I want to explain why it works for me. I am cut from a unique cloth. I am, and this may shock based off what I'm currently doing, an introvert. I actually am. My batteries recharge with quiet, away from people, and doing my own thing. That's how I re-energize. That's how I find my center. A lot of people don't. And a lot of people find that a good friend, a good conversation, unburdening themselves with things that are troubling them is helpful. Speaking to a pastor or a rabbi or an imam or whatever your vessel of faith might be. Other people find self-care in exercise, which is great. And I strongly recommend it. There's a whole host of chemicals that are great for you that come about with exercise, not to mention the immediate longevity that exercise brings to your lifespan. But anything that is healthy outlet, reading, writing a letter, some people like the diary, any of that stuff. But, for me, it was finding a quiet place away from people and just re-energizing. That's what works for me.
Nice. Subjective answer. Just what he wanted.
Yep.
Next one. Favorites. Now, you've answered the book one, so we'll leave it out. Favorite whiskey, movie, TV show, and band of all time.
Okay. Whiskey, and I've said this before, and I am ridiculous for saying it, but because I am a distiller, I have a DSP. I make whiskey, I make bourbon. My favorite isn't my own. It belongs to a distillery called 291 in Colorado Springs. I've had a lot. There's thousands out there. I haven't tried every bourbon in the United States. I haven't even tried every bourbon in the state of Georgia. But I've tried a lot from a lot of different countries and a lot of different places. I love Scotch. I love Lafroig. And I am going to murder the names, Anna. I don't want to hear it. Talisker, there's tons of Scotch whiskey that is gorgeous, but when it comes to what I would gravitate towards, if I had my pick, it's 291 single barrel proof bourbon. It's hot. It's going to run right around 125 to 127 proof, but it's packed with flavor. And it is just incredible. All right, so that's your whiskey. Movie. Yeah, Anna, is that what I owe next?
Movie. Yes, movie, please.
All right, I am a huge movie fan, and I do mean huge. I'm not going to geek out on what lens was used on a camera, but I am a fan, as much as one can be, of movies. And I grew up in the 80s. I watched a shitload of 80s movies. I like science fiction, obviously. And there's a lot of good films out there, and it's very, very hard for me to pick just one. But for me, when someone asks me this question, and they have before, I inevitably return to Blade Runner. Harrison Ford, Rutger Hauer, Daryl Hannah, a whole suite of other amazing actors and actresses, and a story that is, beautifully done, rich cinematography, and timeless. I mean, I still think it holds up to this day. In fact, in some cases, it's gotten better. Edward James Olmos is in it. It's just a great film with a beautiful message. I also love Philip K. Dick as a writer. There's a lot of movies in Hollywood that are based off his works. I mean, a lot. But that's a great movie. And I'd probably throw that out there when somebody asks me that question. Band?
No, TV show.
Oh, TV show.
That was predictable, by the way, the movie. I guess that.
I don't know as if I have a favorite TV show. There's a lot of good shows out there. Like, I love Community. Dan Harmon is brilliant. That show was brilliant. You kind of have to overlook the final season, but the up to the last, great television. I mean, Scrubs is good. The original, they just brought it back. Seinfeld, I grew up on that too. Again, last episode can be ignored. It's hard. It's hard for TV. The current Foundation series on Apple Plus is amazing. I've talked about Tehran, which is another great show, but favorite? And I don't think I can pick a favorite TV show.
It's impossible. American TV is very, very good.
Yeah, it is.
But band. Okay, band. That's hard
I
too.
liked Monty Python and the Flying Circus. Peaky Blinders, get out of here. Fucking Peaky Blinders. Same with band. My taste in music are diverse and wide. Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean,
What about this? What about a band that you never switch off? You never fast forward, skip through? Anything like that?
AC/DC.
Oh, okay. I can see it.
But I'm just as comfortable with AC/DC as I would be with Neil Diamond or John Denver or Judas Priest or Def Leppard or, it's very difficult because music, like most of us, is based off of our mood, and our moods change, and music is adept to suit it. And it can usually exacerbate your emotions or perhaps, bring them down. Or I listen to so much different stuff. I'm sticking with it. It's AC/DC. Move on.
All right. Big gay Brad. Okay. Last one from Matt. Besides Generation Kill. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Besides Generation Kill, what book do you think reflects the Iraq War most accurately? That's tough.
Yeah, because when you say the Iraq War, you're talking about the entire campaign and everything leading up to it.
And there are lots, but they're very subjective.
Yeah, I would go for Fiasco. Try that one.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, next, we're going to Norway.
Oh, I didn't even know that we had presence in Norway. That's
we
amazing.
Sure do.
That's awesome.
This is from Engvold. He sounds like a handsome Nordic Viking, doesn't he?
I'm jealous already. I want a name like that.
He would like to know, why did you choose to start a podcast at this point in your life?
Yeah.
And what gap did you see in the conversation that you felt only you could fill?
Wow. Okay. Why did I choose to do it at this stage of my life? Well, the job that I had previously precluded me from doing something like this. The work that I was doing with the government, the immediate assumption is I'm not going to say a thing and people are going to assume a thing. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to unpack this where people don't be like, ooh. I wasn't doing anything cool or secret or sexy, okay? But I was doing a thing for the government where they don't like you to do this kind of thing. So that's why I couldn't do it. But also there was a lot of things that had to align. So this is not a solo endeavor. I know that I'm the only one that is in front of the camera, but there's an amazing group of people behind the camera that make this all possible. One of which you are blessed to hear in this discussion, and that is Miss Anna. But there are other people that help me with this project, and I had to, all of this had to come together at the right time, and those people to help make this project come to fruition had to be here to help make it happen. And it just wasn't available before now. I wasn't available. They were not available. And it was just perfect timing. It was serendipity, if you will, that everyone was available and came together to get this project off the ground. Now, as far as the why, one of the things that I did, even when I still wore the uniform, was I never asked for the spotlight. I never made a career off of Generation Kill. I never capitalized off it. I don't get royalties. It's not my intellectual property. I never received any money. That is not entirely true. I did do some post-production stuff, and I got paid scale. Whatever SAG-AFTRA rates were for the work that I did. But that was it. I didn't get anything from the magazines, the book, or the TV series. So I never sought the limelight. But what I did do, I tried to use the fact that I was at that time when I first started doing some speaking engagements. I tried to capitalize on people's awareness of the show and me as a part of it to try and get a positive message out, which was mental health, pro-veteran, which is really kind of commercialized patriotism in 2026. There's a lot of organizations, it's veteran small business and veteran owned. And, we offer this service for veterans and we're associated. That's all great. And a lot of these places do phenomenal work, but I held myself up as somebody who said, look, I'm part of this show that you know and you love, I think. Mental health is okay. It's okay to admit you have a problem with whatever it is. Alcohol, drugs, addiction, adrenaline. You have PTSD. It doesn't matter what. Poor relationship with your wife, your daughter, your spouse, your parents, whatever. That's all I ever tried to do when I was active duty, is to destigmify the stigma around mental health. And so if you carry that to its logical conclusion, I have had a lot of wonderful discussions with providers, clinicians, therapists, doctors, those that have received experimental treatment in treating PTSD and trauma, those who are on the forefront of new technologies to treat it. And over the coming months, I want to bring those stories to the larger audience. And I don't know if that's been done the way that I want it to be done. Now, along the way, more and more I am offering my viewpoint on world affairs, as you no doubt have picked up on with the Situation Report, the Sit Rep, our weekly news show, and we do some other things as well. But it has never wandered far away from the core principle of this endeavor, which is helping. We want to help those that might need help, because I believe that we can all get healthy, that we can all find peace from whatever demons are chasing us. And that's why I do it.
Thank you.
He said as he self-medicates quite robustly this evening.
Nobody's perfect.
God, that is good. I mean, if 291 was not so bloody expensive, I would have more of it. It is a treat. Go on. What's
Are
next,
you ready
ma'am?
now?
Oh, yeah.
Got
Lay it
that
on
out?
me. Yeah.
Okay. This is from
Lubricated.
Sarah. Sarah sent us a lovely email. She would like to know, she says, I find myself frustrated with the lack of straightforward news in my media consumption, and I'm curious about your sources. Outside of Reuters, what US news sources do you find trustworthy? And she suggested AP or Bloomberg, perhaps. She'd also like to know how you vet your sources and what suggestions you can offer listeners in finding balanced or fact-based media. Please.
First off, I want to just remind everybody a thing that I have said time and time again, and that's I want everyone to be a critical thinker. Get off your Reddit feeds, your TikTok, your Instagram as a news source. If you want to use it as a platform to discuss news, that's great. But the algorithms from these companies are designed in such a way that they begin feeding you what you like. So as soon as you demonstrate an affinity for a particular type of story, whether that's a bias, whether that's an event, they will begin feeding you that and that only. And it is very hard to break out of that algorithm. So you have to look for other sources. The wire services, as far as I am concerned, is my best source for news, because they operate a little bit differently than your corporate news organizations. You know, I don't want to get into a discussion on which news service I disagree with or agree with. That's not important, because the rules are really universal. The first thing you need to do is you need to find news from a source that is unbiased as can possibly be. And you learn through repetition when you read these stories where bias creeps in and where it is, agnostic. The choice of words that the reporter will use, whether or not, it's allegedly versus, criminally, whether they're declaring guilt or leaving it open to interpretation. There's a lot of news corporations that have inherent bias. So I tend to shun those. The wire services, by comparison, and you mentioned too, Reuters and the Associated Press are on the whole a lot better at just reporting facts. There used to be this thing called facts, believe it or not. It was a thing that was empirical, that just existed in a vacuum until somebody came along and took that fact and took a bite out of it that they liked and left the rest. Yeah. So the AP does a good job. Reuters does a good job, but there's also foreign wire services as well. The French have a good one. There's a couple others. Check them out. There's also a really good app on your phone. I don't want to give a plug for it, okay? But there is a couple of apps that you can get that aggregate news from multiple sources and display it with a bias meter so that you can know right up front the story leans in one direction or next. Vetting of sources is something that you can do yourself. This, at the college level, everyone usually starts with, and they may call it something different, some kind of methods of research class that teaches you where to go to find facts and why Wikipedia is a horrible fucking reference and all of the ways that you can do research on a topic and where to go for this. Apply that same thing. If you haven't done the course, just remember this. Question everything. Single source is never as good as multiple source. Always look for corroboration. Don't ever take someone's word for it unless they have been there and on the ground and it's first source reporting. If it's secondhand or unsubstantiated, be very, very careful with that information. So that's what we usually do. We scrape the wire services for information. We'll also look at trade publications, scientific journals that are peer reviewed, or think tank like Jane's. Anything that Jane publicizes is ordinarily a really good and trustworthy source. So a lot of times, independent internet reporters have fantastic reporting. Just don't get into an echo chamber like we talked about. Anna, what did I leave out?
That's it. Nailed it.
All right.
Well done. Shall we go deeply personal next?
I wouldn't have it any other way, ma'am.
Yeah, stand by. All right, this is from Klaus. If you feel comfortable sharing, I'm curious about your background and adoption experience and how,
Sure.
if at all, it has shaped you.
The adoption hasn't shaped me. My parents are the only parents that I've known. Now, I will tell you, a couple of years ago, I did find my biological mother and my biological father. They are not together. And then have opened up this entire new second family with my biological half-sister and this whole extended family that I didn't know I have. And at this point in my life, that was nice, right? But I didn't lose anything by not having them. I mean, I have a younger brother that I've grown up with, and he's the only brother that I've known. I mean, just because we don't share DNA does not mean that they're not family. And family it's more than blood. Family is relationships. So no, I'm not any different for the experience. I think I'm better off. I mean, my parents bought me. They chose me out of a lineup. There were 3 kids. They chose me. That's pretty fucking cool.
It's lovely. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Bit of a clue here. This is from Ray Person Fan 2000.
Damn.
They would like to. Yeah. It's probably Ray. They'd like to know, when are you going to have Ray back on the podcast?
I don't have any plans to have Ray back in the immediate future. We can always do a catch up with him after a certain amount of time goes by. Ray is a great person. I do stay in touch with him, but we both lead busy lives. So guests like that, I really like to have in person, not virtual. So, scheduling and as I said, lives. I don't have any immediate schedule for him.
Good enough.
Okay.
More to come.
Yep.
All right. Maliha would like to know, that's a pretty name. I'm
it's beautiful.
curious about your religious affiliation. Since you've been in countries where there has been a rise of extremist factions of religion, has it affected your view of religion as a whole?
Okay. So if I didn't alienate my audience with the Marsoc answer, I am definitely about to cut some people in this one. All right. But you wanted personal, and I'm going to give you personal, because the one thing that I have talked about in this show is an unbiased opinion. Now, I'm going to give my opinion professionally, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Okay. The answer to your second part is yes. My experience in conflict around the world has definitely shaped my perception of religion. I have deep respect for anyone who is strongly attached to faith, whatever that faith might be. I am not biased, and I will give my life defending your faith. I honestly will. That's not lip service. Part of what makes this country, America, so special is we will defend to the death your right to practice whatever religion you want. Not every country in the world can say that. And because of that, the opposite side of the spectrum is I've seen where it is forbidden. I've seen where countries have said, do you believe in God? Yes. Do you believe in my God? No. You're dead. Or we're going to go to war with you. I can't count the number of times that the human race has killed one another in the name of a God, whatever God that you might want to put in to that answer. So it has definitely shaped my belief. I'm not religious. I'm agnostic, borderline atheist, if you must know. Religion is beautiful. I'm most strongly attracted to Judaism because it is what I'm familiar with, but also from what I know from a theological standpoint, it espouses tenets that I can get behind. I don't like a religion that threatens you if you don't behave. I like more of choices have consequences. If you make the wrong one, there's a consequence. But all religions put forth a beautiful moral compass. And when man is not busy, and again, gender neutral term, when man is not busy perverting it to their own needs, religion is a great way to navigate human existence. I just don't feel like the human race is mature enough to use religion for what it is most likely intended for, and that's peace, because I haven't seen it.
Lovely. Let's go somewhere different. I don't understand this one, so I hope you do.
Yeah.
This is from Ian.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I've got a question on the EOTech thermal drift controversy.
Okay.
It seems like EOTech didn't do themselves any favors being so tight-lipped about the problem, but it also seems like when they started actually testing different optics, more or less all of them have some drift with big temperature changes. What was the opinion of the actual users at the time? Did they actually pull them all from service and then allow them again after some amount of time? Would you use one now, or was the trust broken?
I don't know enough about the technical problems that were experienced to actually give an authoritative opinion about it. I've used the EOTech along with the magnifier. I personally don't like it. I much prefer the Aimpoint or the EOTech. The Trigicon. I have an EOTech on my Tabor shotgun. I've not experienced the problem that you're describing, and maybe, Anna, we can circle back after I do a little bit more due diligence on this, because otherwise I'm going to talk out my butt, and I don't want to do that. That's not fair to the question.
Gladly. Thanks.
Okay. Yep.
Oh, where should we go now? What do you want? Frivolous one or a serious one? What do you fancy?
No, let's do frivolous.
Okay. All right. We got some good ones of those.
Okay.
Let's go to Evelyn. She is one of our Patreon members.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Evelyn. Appreciate the support.
Indeed, she is. She would like to know, how do you prep your steaks? Tell us about your meat, Brad.
Yep. I dry brine 24 hours in advance. Dry brining is just taking some large flake coarse sea salt and sprinkling on about the amount that you would sprinkle on it if you were going to eat it right there. And then let it sit for a day in the fridge. The salt goes in, moisturizes, does a whole bunch of wonderful things chemically. I'll let Alton Brown talk about that more if you want. And then that's all the prep. And then a little bit of pepper, and they go on to my method of cooking, whether it's the smoker or the grill.
Follow-on question, kind of. Cast iron or stainless steel?
For steaks, I always use cast iron if I am using cast iron, but more often than not, I will slow smoke the steaks at 225 and do a reverse sear, 90 seconds on each side in cast iron.
Nice. Short and to the point. What's a hobby you've considered picking up but haven't, and why have you not?
Sleeping. What hobby have I picked up? I'd love chickens, but I'm not home enough to raise the chickens. I really do. I would love chickens. I got tons of land, and chickens are the funniest little animals in the world. I would like chickens, but I'm just not home long enough to take care of them. So, yeah.
They make the loveliest noise when you pick them up, don't they?
Oh God, they're just.
I love them too.
I want to squish them.
Someone told me, yeah. Someone said they have mites. I don't care. I'd cuddle them. Anyway.
Yeah.
Do you have dreams that repeat themselves?
Yes.
That's as far as you'd like to go?
Yep.
Next. Oh gosh. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? I said it right. Oh my God.
I think that in and of itself is a drinking reward.
I just reached for it. You've read my mind.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know how to answer that question. I'll ask. I know a guy. I will ask. I don't like to brag, but we'll get to it. All right, go on.
Ooh, okay. Last song you listened to on repeat.
Can I reference my phone because I'm going to murder the name?
Okay, we'll allow it.
Okay. The song that I have been listening to on repeat lately is Anna Norsis by Asaf Avidin. My God, can I just spell this?
Please.
All right, the song is the title of the song is spelled ANAGNORISIS. The artist is spelled 2 words, ASAFAVIDAN. It's Darkness Song. That's the album. That's the artist. The name of the song is Darkness Song. I have been stuck with this on repeat for weeks. I love it. It's gorgeous. I'm burning it out of my system so I can put it away and move on to something else.
Lovely. Thank you. Written it down. All right. Last one from Evelyn. These are some good ones.
All right.
Thoughts on the movie, The Fifth Element?
Love it. Amazing movie. Oh, absolutely great. And what a cast, right? Like everyone that performed in that movie did an incredible performance. Yes, Mila Jovovich. Yes, Bruce Willis. But what about the others, right? Who else was in there?
Don't know, but Jean-Paul Gaultier did the costumes.
Yeah,
and they were
I wouldn't.
fabulous.
I
like him.
I wouldn't have known
he's
that.
French, I know, but he's fabulous.
Yeah. Well, what about the antagonist in that film?
I don't remember who it was. That's terrible, isn't it? I
That's
know.
all right.
I'm sorry.
It's a great movie. I strongly recommend it. It's way up there. Yeah.
All right, next. Oh, we're going serious again.
Okay.
This is from a Reddit user. Hey, Brad, did you get mefloquine or mefloquine? How do we say it? Anti-malarial, I believe.
Mefloquine. It's an anti-malarial. So you either got doxycycline or mefloquine. Yeah, I took it. It's an anti-malarial. It's quite common worldwide. It's not the British Navy where we're drinking quinine. I mean, Anna, that's where the gin and tonic came from, and that's why it's so popular. Yep. A lot of people don't. For those that don't, the British Army drank a lot of gin and tonics because gin and tonic contains quinine, which was an anti-malarial.
Quinine, if you're English,
yeah,
actually.
It's quinine. Get out of here.
Bullshit, you with your bastardization of our language.
We made it better. You created it, and like everything, America improved it. You're welcome.
Right, let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a good one. This is from Greg Gooseman. He's one of our Patreon members.
Thank you, Greg.
He has asked several questions, and they're all good ones.
Okay.
What was it like going through selections? RIP, which I believe is Recon Indoctrination Program.
Yep.
BRC, Basic Reconnaissance Course.
Yep.
How did you mentally and physically develop to meet the standards?
I didn't mentally prepare or physically prepare. I mean, I competed competitively in swimming all my life. So I was incredibly quick in the water, which helped tremendously because I was very slow on the land running, which I talked about before. So I honestly, I didn't. I just jumped right in. I went to military school for a portion of high school. And then I think just the personality that I was cut from lended itself towards mental resiliency. I think, I don't know. I made it. Yeah. Did I weasel out of that one, Anna? Did I answer it?
You weaseled out a little bit. So what was the experience like? Were they tough? Were they horrendous?
Yes, it was hard. The Basic Reconnaissance course was a challenging course, not the hardest that I have done by any means, but it was challenging. And it was because
I want to know what that one is too. Sorry.
Yeah.
For later.
I mean, I went through the Basic Reconnaissance course. I was younger. I was still older than the average Marine because I did enlist when I was 21. But, I was young. I was in good health. But it was new experiences in some cases. And anything new, you're liable to fail at. And you don't want to fail. You don't want to fail because you don't want to leave the course. But you also don't want to look bad in front of your peers. So there's a lot of social pressure to perform and perform well. Yeah, but it was hard. But it like I said, it wasn't the hardest thing that I've done. I thought dive school was much harder, for a whole host of reasons. I mean, Winter Mountain Leaders course was hard too. So I don't know. But,
can you talk about dive school? There's a horrible thing you have to do escaping from something, isn't there?
Drown proofing, but that's not too bad. The underwater hits can be kind of challenging. mostly it's just a self-imposed stress because the standards are high and the academics are extraordinarily challenging, and there's really very little room for error.
Superhuman. Extremely impressive.
I don't know about all that.
That's all you'll get from me. Right, next from Greg. What was the most valuable takeaway from your time working with the British? Careful here.
No, I've said it before. My most valuable takeaway was perseverance. The British Royal Marine Commando, their training is eight months long. They have a high attrition rate, but they also have a high rehabilitation program, or a very robust rehabilitation program. So they don't throw away their trash, right? If I could coin a phrase. So what I was most impressed with is just their perseverance, their resiliency. They will laugh and enjoy misery more than most Marines, I think, would in similar situations. So I was very impressed.
Good. Finally, from Greg, what are your thoughts on the Fallout show?
Love it. I love the game, and I've said that earlier in tonight's show. So huge fan of the Fallout. I think they're doing it justice. And I like Goggins. He's a great actor. He's doing a great job as the ghoul. All the cast, actually. It's a great show. Really well done. I'm enjoying it.
All right. Good. Let's go back to the Middle East, shall we?
Please.
This is from a Reddit user, Anonymous. Based on what you saw that the US did wrong in Iraq and Afghanistan, how can we avoid that in this next conflict with Iran? And how will the newer age of warfare, drones, impact that? I suppose we're seeing it.
Drones is going to be everything for the next, 30. I mean, for as long as you and I are alive and able to have a conversation about it, Anna, drones, they're going to dominate the battlefield more and more and more as we slowly work towards Skynet taking over the planet. What are we going to learn from the mistakes? Nothing, because that was an analog war. In so many ways, the warfare has changed. What we're seeing in Ukraine is a laboratory for how conflict is going to be fought the next 50 years. What we did in Iraq and Afghanistan was, it was pencil and paper compared to a computer. I don't think there's any lessons left to learn other than, what it takes to train for war. I think we learned a lot about that, medicine, things like that.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome.